ಮಾಡ್ತಾರಂತ.
Is the screen visible?
Okay, sir, it is visible now.
Okay, fine.
Okay, sir. Sir, I'll introduce, sir. Just a moment. Okay, sir. So just a minute, I'll introduce you, sir. Okay. Good afternoon, one and all. Myself, Girish M, Assistant Professor, Department of CAC, Gopalan College of Engineering and Management. So I welcome you this. Firstly, I will welcome the speaker, Dr. Nilanjan De, and all the participants for the AICT sponsored 6 days online STTP on cyber criminology and network security, organized by Department of CSE. So today's topic is forensic digital image. So firstly, I will introduce about the speaker. Dr. Nilanjan De is currently serving as an associate professor, Department of Computer Science and Engineering, JIS University, Kolkata, India. He is a visiting fellow, WC Laboratory, Department of Biomedical Engineering, University of Reading, UK, Ambassador, IFIP, Interred, India. So his main achievements, he was authored and edited more than 85 books with Elsewhere, Wiley, CRC Press and Springer, and published more than 300 papers. His H-index is 49 with more than 9,300 citations. So he acted as editor-in-chief and co-editor in many publications. So his main research interests include medical imaging, machine learning, computer-aided diagnosis, as well as data mining. So once again, I welcome you, sir, for this today's session.
Thank you very much. So good afternoon, everyone.
All the participants also.
So am I audible?
Thank you, sir. Can take over the session, sir.
Yes, fine. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's audible. Audible, okay, sir.
Fine. A very good afternoon to everyone. Today I am going to discuss about biometrics and its implications in forensic science. So once we talk about biometrics, basically we are talking about user authentication. So if you go through the taxonomy, you will see the user authentication are basically 3 types. One category is called the knowledge-based category.
Sir, your screen is not visible, sir. Once again, sir. Just a minute. Sir, your screen is not visible.
Okay, fine. 1 minute. Is it fine now?
It is visible, sir.
Okay.
You can go ahead, sir. You can go ahead.
Fine. So once we talk about user authentication, there are basically 3 categories of user authentication. The first category is the knowledge-based category. So knowledge-based category actually deals with numerical values. So traditionally, any password or PIN number is knowledge-based. So it tells what you know. That is the main focus. Second category is the position-based. Like you have a smart card or QR code or say token. So what you have, that is the position-based. And the third category is the biometric category, which actually deals with your physiological and the behavioral pattern. Now talking about physiological, it's depending upon the shape of your body or some characteristic feature of your body. Like say finger scan, it might be iris scan, might be retina, might be hand geometry, might be facial recognition. So these are different categories. And once you talk about behavioral, we used to talk about signature, gleets, keystroke, mouse movement. These are different categories. And there is another hybrid category also there. But these are typically mainly 3 categories of authentication. So knowledge-based, position-based, and the biometric-based. So first we will focus on biometric-based, then we will go one by one. So once we talk about, I mean, yeah, physiological based, we basically talk about the shape and the size of the body. So as I already mentioned, like retinal scanning, your iris might be ECG signal, biometry, or the DNA. This all comes under that. Now, once we talk about behavioral actually human behavior over the time. So might be walking pattern. So it's a gait or the rhythm, the way you are typing, or the way you are signing. So these are all the behavioral modality. And once we talk about combined modality, where the physical and the behavioral both changes is notable, like voice recognition, where we actually deals with, say, voice code, nasal activity, or cavity of the mouth, might be shape of the lips, as well as the emotional state, age, or the illness if you have. So all this comes under, club together. So this physical and the behavioral changes, and it combiningly gives you one combined modality. And one example is the voice recognition. So these are the three basic biometric modalities. Now, very first, we will talk about physiological modality. So it's an old and primitive technique. One is called the fingerprint recognition system. So every person have a unique fingerprint which composes your ridge, which composes grooves or the direction of the lines. So there are three basic pattern of ridge. One is the formation of loop or hole or the arc. So if you study any fingerprint, you will see either there is a loop or there is an arc or there is a hole. But the thing is, the arc can be different arc. Like here there is a 10 arc. So it's or the right loop or the left loop, or it can be a double loop. So it can be, the loop can be different, the arc can be different, but generally there are three typical pattern you can observe. And these all, this uniqueness of the finger, which are determined this by these features, these are called the minutes. So minute features are basically of the ridge, and that can be bifurcation or that can be spots. Spots means ridge ending, where the ridges are ended. Like here, there is a terminology called star delta. Star delta is a triradii. What is triradii? Triradii is basically where the human hands represent the boundary where three different fields meet. It might be a star formation, it might be a delta formation. So if you study the loop or the hole, you will see that there is some delta formation. But in the arc, there is no such kind of star or delta formation. So this is one particular identifier. Now, second one, as I already told, in ridge, once you study the ridge and the minute edges, you will see there are different types of bifurcation. So one bifurcation, this is a prominent ridge bifurcation, and this is the, ridge point where it is starting bifurcating. And sometimes there is a ridge ending. So suddenly the ridge ended. Like here, you can see there is a bifurcation, prominent bifurcation, which is pointed. And here, there is a sudden edge stop, means this particular ridge end suddenly stopped. So in this way, from here, we can get a binary matrix, and that matrix can be processed further to identify the base, the tree. Is it there any bifurcation or is there any spot? So we try to find out the ridge endings. So this is one way of doing the pattern recognition part. From minute patterns, if you more minutely study the minute pattern, you will see this ridge there are different types. Like there are some island, there can be some ending, there can be some isolated dots, there can be some enclosure kind of thing, which actually encloses, there can be bifurcation. So it's not typically only bifurcation and ending, but apart from these, there is some termination, there is some bifurcation, there can be independent ridge, there can be points, there can be crossover, there can be lake. So these are all different class level where you can identify which particular type of this bifurcation is. So is it a ridge bifurcation or is it ridge enclosure or dot or ending, this thing. So in this way, you can train your machine the pattern of the finger. Now, once we talk about this matching procedure, once we try to match, the first matching procedure is called the minute based technique. What is that? In minute based technique, there are, suppose these are two fingerprints, and initially we try to enhance the quality of the image, because if the quality of the image is very low, you can go for image quality assessment. There are some certain matrix, statistical matrix measures by which you can find what is the quality of the image, and then after that you can go for any enhancement technique. Might be if the illumination is not even, you can go for illumination you can change accordingly. After this this enhancement process, you can find the feature. These are the ridge points, ridge ending points, or the bifurcation points, or the isolated dot. These are different features. So might be you can deploy say 100 strong features. So now you try to map each and every feature with these two images, and you will try to find out how many numbers of feature are hitting and how many numbers of features are missing. So might be strongest 100 feature if you select from image A and you try to map with B, then might be 4 or 5 cases it is not matching. So depending upon that, you will get a similarity score. But the interesting part is you always not give the thumb in a same way. So might be there is a certain tilt once you put the finger. So it sometimes needs some image registration technique. So once you have to go, go for registration, might be Demon registration, might be B-spline. So you can deploy any kind of registration. Once you register that particular image, then you try to compare these two images, the feature points. Once the feature point map, then after that the registration process, the similarity score will be achieved. So this actually minute based technique, where there is a one limitation, it always deals with the local position of the ridges. It's not a global feature. And secondly, the quality of the image, it's a very much depends upon the quality of the image, because you need to find out the ridge points, the bifurcations, the dot points, the isolated zone. So each and every one. So in this way, this is the first technique, very first technique, where this enhancement technique and the feature extraction very much depends upon, the similarity code very much depends upon these two factors. So intermediate registration process also is a depending decision making factor. The second one is basically a correlation based method. So in correlation based method, we try to correlate two particular images. If it is template image and you have a query image, we try to find out correlate. Once there is a correlation, that obtains correlation, just matching score. So here you don't have the quality issue. The image can be a bad quality also. You did not to find out the localization point very much, because if you not go for point to point matching, if you go for template to template matching, then it will be much more easier. It doesn't depends upon the local features. So correlation based technique is the second category of matching. Third category is a widely used category. It is called image based or the pattern based matching, where you need to go for a pre-processing. You will find a pattern, you extract that pattern, you find out the say binary matrix, and you have a template binary matrix also. Then you try to match those binary matrix, and it gives you some similarity score. It's a match one or not match one. Might be the probability it will give, how much the similarity is or the probability is. So this all about this arc hole and the loop, how it works, and how the minute features actually affected for this feature recognition process. So these are the three different categories of feature identification of fingers. Identification of finger or the finger recognition system. Generally, this finger recognition system is very economical. That's why it's widely used. Second is the template size is very small. So it's always speed up the verification process, because if it is a facial image and if it is a finger image is much more lesser than size. The template is size, so the speed is fast, and always it's takes consume less memory space. So these are the three advantages. There are different other merits also, and demerits, if there is some skirts or the cuts or some absence of finger, then might be the entire process will you will not be able to conduct. Or sometime it might happen you are using some works, which is basically you are creating one artificial finger, and you can fool the system. So these are the demerits. And the lastly most important demerit, as we know, most of our cases, the fingerprint recognition system in our organization or institute now almost stopped because of this COVID, where there is need of physical contact. So physical contact is one of the limitation of this particular recognition system. So this is all about the finger recognition system. So 1 minute, let me check how many people are there. Okay. So now coming to the second one, I'm not going more deep into this facial recognition system, because facial recognition system itself can be a talk. But once we talk about facial recognition process, actually it deals about the shape and the size of the jaw, chin, shape of the or the location of the eye, eyebrows, nose, lips. Uh, we will talk about 2D and 3D facial recognition system, where there are some feature extraction. You might be in eigenspace, you project those features after say PCA. Then after that you put into a recognition system that will give you a ID code, and that ID code is most important. Once you go for this face geometry and recording the grid, I mean you get some points, and those points are basically forming one grid, and that grid or the facial geometry you transfer it into database, and that in terms of point, and those points actually give you some ID points, means you will get an ID. So detection alignment is a one part, and another part is the recognition and the coding part. And most interestingly, for forensic, this coding part is most important. If anyone wants to study further, there is a reference mentioned over here. You can go through this. This is one interesting reference. I mean, you can study. Now, once we talk about facial matrix, uh, facial matrix is basically there are some points which are fixed distance points. Like suppose your nose to your lips or lips to chin. These all points are fixed length. I mean fixed point. So this size you can't change. I mean it's all fixed point size. So point used to calculate the facial matrix. So these particular points, feature points, are actually the nodal points to create the facial matrix. And there is another interesting thing which is called golden ratio of a face. So a man will look beautiful or not beautiful, that is also determined by golden ratio. So if you study this, you will see there is a 1/5 horizontally or vertically, it's a one, say 1/3 in horizontally or vertically 1/5. If you put it into grid, then might be this grid will give you some golden ratio. So this is one golden ratio study which is also important for facial matrix generation. Now, talking about this eigenfaces and PCA and eigenfaces is very widely used in face recognition system. Uh, Here, basically, what we try to do, it's a process of analyzing the overall faces as a weightage combination of the face. So there is a mean face we try to design, and we subtract with those faces, and then after that, this eigenspace we will get some point that needs to be analyzed. So it's a one mechanism, but there are different way of thought process, like skin texture analysis. I mean it always depends upon the quality of the image and how the image is acquiring, what is the lighting conditions. So depending upon lighting conditions also, it changes. So person skin, you can locate a person, you can identify a particular position where the face is there or the skin is there, but the derma component, it's not be very much clear for identification purpose in most of the cases. But there is a technique called local binary pattern. If you study this matrix, this image, you will see it's a 3x3 matrix, and all are having gray different values. Now what we try to do, we will try to find out the midpoint, that is a 90. So whatever the value is above 90, we will substitute with 1, and whatever the value below 90, we will substitute by 0. So in this way, we will get a binary matrix. So for 90, we will get a binary matrix. So this is basically a thresholding process. This thresholding can be adaptive. This thresholding can be manual. If it is an adaptive, depending upon the image, it will decide which threshold you will choose. Then after that, you try to read this 1 0 pattern. Let's start from here. So 1 0 1 0 0 1 1 0. or say start from here 0 1 0 0 1 1 0 1. So always you will get a value, decimal value, which you will substitute here. So 141. So 90 will be substituted by 141, and this particular value actually holds all the neighborhood pixels information. So this is one is a neighborhood study. So you are trying to find out the local binary pattern of that particular pixel. So in this way, this is called LBP. In this way, LBP, which actually creates a grid, and for individual grid, there is a histogram. If you compact that histogram, or if you select a particular certain number of histogram from there, those can be a good feature for face recognition. And yeah, this particular technique, this apart from eigen and PCA, LBP is also very widely used. And another case is LBP is an old technique now, but there are lots of variants are available of LBP, where you can, I mean, if you study, you can deploy any of the LBP pattern in your face recognition process. In 3D cases, it's typical different type of image analysis, where first you need to 3D modeling depends upon cut of the figure. How you cut the figure, it depends upon some certain points. So there are three different points which are already even assigned to eye point and one nose point, dip point, and these three basically where it intersecting, that point we need to find. I mean, that's basically an indicator point from where we will start cutting the faces. So there are some different techniques for this face cutting, and once you cut the face, you have to study two things. One is the parameters and one is the vertex. So by this parameter and the vertex, we try to fuse this and we get a face map. So the first one, if you study, you will see there is a I mean anthropometric landscape you will get, where the distance matrix, all there are different distances. Second one, there is a segmentation, and the third one, there is a checkerboard texture of this Dharma parameterized, where the parameter value is how much, depending upon that particular checkerboard generates. Once you find this, you can also go for geodesic path. So it basically a path where the tip is on the nose, and you create a geodesic part, and that part is basically act as a mask. Now you have an original image, you have a triangular mask, and that triangle mask can be normalized into 3D spaces, planar mask, and then from there you can get a local shape descriptor. So the main objective is to find out the local shape descriptor. So you create a mask that is a triangular mask. From there, you normalize it. You come into a planar mask. That from planar mask, you come up with a, mean curvature is a step section, local shape. And similarly, in global shape also, you have an original image. You go for triangular mask. Then there is a plane mask generation, and finally you will get some global shape. So this global shape and the local shape, depending upon that, you construct your 3D faces and analyze those faces and plot it into a face map that should be a 2D map. So in this way, this mapping results, this is one results which is a 2010 published paper. So this is one way of analyzing a face, 3D face. But apart from these, there are lots of different techniques are there for 3D face finding analysis, or rather recognition system. In facial recognition system, the easiest part is it offers to easily you can store the database. You can get lots of variants of data. That is another interesting thing. The statistical complexity is much more lesser. No physical contact. So these are interesting points, the merits, but demerits. Faces or facial properties changes over the time. If there is an identical twins, there is not guaranteed that it will always a recognition system will work. Uh, it depends upon the lightning process, and apart from these, there are Plakchik model. If you study, you can see there are lots of different image, face recognition, or say emotion recognitions are there. So different emotions in Plakchik model, all those basic emotions are there. So those emotions and those variations of the faces actually sometimes affects this recognition system. So these are the different limitations, or say you can say demerits of the face recognition process. Now coming to iris recognition system, once you talk about iris recognition system, it's a basically controls the dia of the pupil. So once you working with the pupil, the diameter is determined by this. So the texture of the iris is stable throughout the lifespan. So throughout your life, the texture of the iris will be same. So that's why this acquisition process of iris is a very costly process, because you have to go to the, you have to study to the people and you have to study the iris. From there, for 2%, the iris is different. Even for a single person, left eye and right eye iris is also different. The texture is different. So texture analysis is a crucial feature analysis for this iris recognition system, where the iris is basically I mean, once you find acquire the image, you go for segmentation. If there is a binary mask, you put the binary mask to find out only the iris part. Then you have to normalize. Sometimes people transfer the Cartesian image into a polar image, r theta image. So Cartesian to r theta image, and now after that they go for feature extraction. Then normal traditional process, they put it in a database. There is a mapping and there is a similarity score it generates. But interesting part is here, you need normalization, you need proper segmentation. It should not be over segmented or under segmented. If it is under segmented, it might be fine. Over segmented will give you wrong results. And another thing is that texture analysis is very crucial for this iris recognition system. Now, for iris recognition system, 1 to 10 billion people, two iris can be same. So you can imagine 10 billion people if you study. So one cases might be the iris is same. So it's a highly accurate process. And throughout the lifetime, there is no change. One person, two iris is different. Even though they uses contact lens or sunglasses, that doesn't actually hampers the whole process. There is no physical contact actually required. You need only camera and instance verifications. It takes very fast process, 2 to 5 minutes process. The template is much more smaller than retina. So this is, the process is very fast. But the demerits is this iris scanner is very expensive. You need high quality images to to fool the scanner. Another thing is accuracy. It's very high, but still iris recognition system still needs to be explored, because if you study, you will see this iris recognition system is not that much acceptable here because of might be of the cost. Then comes the hand geometry recognition system, where the length and the width of the palm or the surface, the length and the positions of the figure, even the bone structure is also actually determines the hand geometry. There are different nodal points. So these are the different points. You can find out the Euclidean distance in between 2 points, or you can find out the Manhattan distance. So this Manhattan distance can give you one, might be one feature. Sometimes it creates some triangle, this triangle area or the parameters, this can be the features. So in this way, hand geometry is a feature which actually creates lots of features, because there are lots of anchor points. So those anchor points are depending upon the bone structure. So here you can study, if you study a hand, you will see there is a palm. So once you talk about palm, there is a, once you extract it, there is a prominent texture. You can find out that texture is different from one person to other. So this basal tree is different. So in this way you can find out the, this palm is also an identifier. But interestingly, second thing is most interesting, that is a knuckle. So once you talk about these knuckles are different, and the texture is different, pattern is different. So you can go for this kind of analysis. You can go for color feature extraction, you can go for say shape based feature, and you can go for texture. All three feature analysis is equally acceptable. So here these red points are second minor finger knuckles. So if this is the first major, this is the major one, there is a minor one, there is a second minor one. So in this way, there are three different knuckles you can get. So in this way, these knuckles, study of these knuckles and the pattern and the shape of these knuckles, or the texture of the knuckles, or the color of the knuckles, that gives you different features. So this is one interesting study. Many work is going on knuckles. In hand geometry, the main limitation is this. I mean, the skin texture do not affect the result. It is a merit, but in cases of demerit, there are lots of demerit. Hand geometry is not unique. It might change depending upon the orientation, how you are putting your hand. I mean, if you are wearing some jewelry or there is some arthritis, might be you have a plaster, you can face problems. So once there is a growing child, the hand geometry changes. So hand geometry is not throughout lifetime, it's the same. So for a certain point of period of time, hand geometry works fine, but for a regular process might be hand geometry is not proper. But digital forensic cases might be hand geometry is one of the identifier. Now coming to the retinal scanning system, this is basically second one is a OCT image and the first one is a retinal image. These are all vessels, and this particular portion which is very dark area which is called macula, rather fovea. This is fovea. Inside that there is a point called macula. The macula is the most sensitive part of the eye. There is a cup, there is a disc, there is a fovea, and there is a point, that is the macula, which is the darkest point of the eye. Now always this macula, actually there is a blood vessel which actually surrounds this macula. Now this macula to optical cup, there is a fixed distance for all human beings, and this macula to this optical cup is one of the biometric identifier. So for that you need to do, you have to find out the vessels. Like any ophthalmo diseases, we have to find out the vessels first to find out how the vessels are, I mean, are they dislocated or say crossover, how the crossover is there, if there is any kind of damage or hemorrhage. So this can be studied from this vessel. But this vessel tree is interestingly also a unique identifier of any person. So we can go for correlation based matching, we can go for point based matching also. So these can give you a similarity score. And as well as the distances, like say macula to the optical cup, can also be a distance based recognition system. Like there are some diseases like say glaucoma, there are optical cup to disc ratio, it should be always over 0.58. This is one distinct distance measure. And for say if you talk about diabetes, there are some soft exudate or hard exudate kind of diabetes, or say cotton like structure, or there is an hemorrhage. This creates different patches. These are the different patches. So these patches can also be compared with each other, and this patch correlation might be the junction location which gives the output image, and that gives a similarity score. So in this way there are three ways. One is distance based, one is your vessel tree to vessel tree feature or correlation based study, or you can study based on the patches. So these are the three different categories of retinal scanning system or other procedure. So here it's a training test training procedure where there is a pixel level. These are the trees, and you go for some deep learning study, and you go train your machine, and there are some segmented results. Then after that, these results needs to be mapped with each other. So as I use this terminology convolution layer, and it's basically we will deal with binary images. So next 4-5 slide I will talk about a little bit about this CNN. So basically once we talk about learning process, deep learning is a representation technique of a different kind. So it's similar thing, it's a learning process, but there is a certain things which is different kind of learning mechanism to the neural network. So here I am showing one points, a few points are there, circular points, and there are some triangle. Now the question is, can I draw a single line? Can I draw a straight line to separate these circles from the triangle? So that is our objective. The objective is I need to draw a straight line which will separate this circle from this rectangle. So initially in a learning process, we will say, no, it's not possible. But Ian Goodfellow, he come up in 2016 with a paper, and this image is taken from there itself, where is shown that if you change this Cartesian to a polar coordinate, you will r theta from xy2, then you will see there is a prominent discrimination between these circles and these triangles. Now it will be easier for you to separate out by a straight line. And now if you from polar to you back to Cartesian, it will be a circle. So the way of representation is different, but the procedure is almost similar. So that is one notion for deep learning. Here, what we actually do, we have an image which is suppose a binary pattern. These ones are the vessel and these zeros are the non-vessel area. Now we will simply stride this one particular mask, and this mask 3x3 matrix will create different image patches. These patches are local patterns of that particular palm, or if you work with retina, with retina. So in this way, if you stride for each and every stride, even the stride might be 2, stride might be 1 pixel, might be 3 pixel, it generates different patches. And these patches are local pattern. Now this pattern, once you have a feature, this is the matrix. Suppose if you have a filter, 3x3 filter, and this diagonally 1. Now if this is your patch, now you try to go for convolution operation. So you sum of product of these two matrices and you will get 3. Now you move it and you get sum of product minus 1. In this way, you stride and you will create your own feature matrix. So if you have an image, if you have a moving kernel which will stride and it go for a convolution operation or sum of product operation with a filter, and that gives a feature map. And this feature map, this is the ones. So if you change the feature, if you repeat the whole process, it will create another level of feature. So you need not to go for any color feature extraction or say shape feature extraction or say texture feature extraction. You simply generate your own feature only by striding the kernel and multiplying taking the sum of product or the convolution operation with the filter, and it creates your own features. So these are the features which is generated from the local patterns. Now once you have this matrix, this is your filter. So who are contributing? This first 3 cell is contributing, next 3 cell is contributing, rest all other pixels are not contributing for 3. So here, if you study in this way, this is a fully array. I'm converting this whole matrix into 1D array. Now these 3, who are contributing? These 3, the first 3 cell is contributing, then say 7, 8, 9 is contributing, 13, 14, 15 is contributing for 3. Now in this way, initially there are how many numbers of parameters? The input number is not with everyone, rather we are only dealing with 3 into 3, that is total number 9 inputs. So in this way, there is a huge number reduction of parameter process. So in this way, that's why deep learning is much more faster. Similarly, for the second stride, suppose this number is -1. So who are contributing? 2, 3, 4 and 8, 9, 10. So 8, 9, 10 is contributing. In this way, gradually every time you will see, instead of all the values, matrix value, only 9 value are contributing for individual features. So there is a huge reduction of number of parameters. So it's called shared weight. It's not fully connected like neural network. In shared weight, we are only sharing those weights who needs to be activated for this feature. So here different binary patterns, we put it into an array form and individually it passes to the neural network, and once every neural network will give some output, this patches all those output club together in another matrix. This is the output matrix. From there we will take the maximum, that is called the max pooling. From those max pooling we will pass through the neural network. Through last final fully connected network, we will get some output. So this is the matrix formation. Filter 2, this is 2 different image matrix. These are the different patches. If you only go for the max pooling, the only maximum value will be retained, no other value will be there. So in this way, there is a huge another level reduction of output values, and it changes 9 values into a single value. So in this way, there is an input matrix, there is a convolution layer, there is a pooling layer, and there can be multiple convolution pooling layer, and ultimately there is a fully connected layer, and that fully connected layer, finally it will give you some output. Might be if you use some activation function like sigmoidal, it will give you a probabilistic one, say 1 0 some value output. So here you can see X is not connected with everyone, or X2 is not connected with every intermediate nodes. Rather, it is only connected where it needs to be connected. This is called the shared way. And there is some activation function. Depending upon your requirement, you will change it is ReLU or it's TANH or it's a sigmoidal. There are some intermediate hidden layers, and finally it's a fully connected layer, and you will get some output. So this is the basic structure, fundamental structure of a CNN. Now coming to this demerits and merits of retinal scanning system. Retinal scanning system can be easily forged. Like you can say you can't create an artificial forgery for this retinal system. So it's unique for any person. So it can't be easily forged. And another second thing is the rate of error is very reliable. The system is very reliable. And demerits, your poor health condition, your eye actually reflects. As we know that once we go to doctor's chamber, they used to see that the eye and the say your tongue. So from there they try to assess what type of disease you are having. So from eye might be hypertension or diabetes or glaucoma. So anything, any this kind of diseases can be easily recognized. And another thing is this retina is basically they're always linked with a privacy issue. So you will share your data or not share your data. That depends upon the data sharing policies and the privacy concerns are there. So these are the demerits. Now coming to the ear biometrics. Ear biometrics is nowadays it's typically using for some standalone applications, like suppose there is an architecture where you try to find out the shape of the ear and try to say which generation it is coming from if you want to study. In that type of cases, ear matrix widely used. Even for painting and that which time frame those paintings are created, those things measurement. So there are also some nodal points, just like hand gesture, hand geometry, and those points there are some draggable points and individual point. You can go for Euclidean measurement, you can go for Manhattan, you can forming triangles, you can draw normals, you can draw center lines, and in this way you can get multiple number of features which are basically distance based feature. And once we talk about distance based feature, it's always vulnerable because the distance can change over time. But still there are some old measurement technique. If you draw in this way, if you divide into some certain cells, you will see there are some fixed length distances, say from here to here, from here to here, and from here to here. There is always a ratio matrix. So this ratio will not change throughout the lifespan. So this ratio study might be sometimes very effective rather than distance based study, because distance can change. There is a slight change of shape, but ratio on an average almost same throughout the lifespan. So ear biometrics is an emerging field where many people have started working. It's not widely explored yet. It's a good area to work with. Then comes dental biometrics. So it might be post-mortal or ante-mortal. So in both cases, if you get the samples, you have to go for segmentation, you have to go for contour extraction, age detection technique. And once you go for this, you have to form the atlas registration, that is called the numbering system. So how many teeth and which are the teeth and which pairs are there. So that needs to be identified properly. And once you do this, then after that upper row or the say upper jaw, the lower jaw. So in this way, you can match with the existing pattern. So it will also give you a matching distance. Based on the score of the matching distance value, it will assess that if the person is the other person or the same person. So it's a dental biometrics. But problem is this getting this data, X-ray data of dental is a difficult or challenging task. Means it's not always easy. OC, once you talk about say RCT or canneling, root canneling, if you go for root canneling, if you get the digital data, biometric dental data, might be you can study this kind of biometrics. Not so many databases are available for this, open databases for dental biometrics, but still there are few. Now, last about this physiological behavior, last one, which I am going to talk. Then after that, other types. So the one is a biomedical signals. So it might be apart from ECG signal, it might be any other signal also, depending upon say EEG signal or ECG signal, PPG signal or PCG signal, whatever. So here, if you study the ECG signal, you will see there are some PQ complex. This is called PQ, and this is QT complex. This is from Q to T, and this is overall called PQRST complex. So QRS complex, QRS is a complex. So there are different measures. Like from R to R is called your heartbeat. So that is basically the heart rate. This is R to R. Now for all different heart diseases, pericardia, epicardia, pericardia, tachycardia, everyone, you will see this ECG signal is, there is a slight difference. Might be the T is somewhere tilt, or might be the difference between say T to Q is different, or say P to P difference is the value is different. But on an average, if you study, you will see for a normal person who is sleeping or in a rest mode, their ECG signal is constantly same. So sometimes ECG biometrics deals with the people who are actually in a steady state, not who is running or who just came from outside and I'm taking his ECG to map, not like that. So data acquisition process, then after that there is a filtering process, because it's a biomedical signal, lots of filtering issues are there. I mean, noise issues can be there. Then after that you segment it, you find out what are the PQRST points. Then after that, say RR points, TT points, PP point, ST points, QRS complex. So all these are different features which can be mapped. So in this way, after this feature extraction procedure, you can find out that this particular ECG is of the same person or not same person. So in this way, successfully a person can be identified. Again, this ECG biometrics may very nowadays widely using, people are using, but still it's vulnerable, because a person, if this say if it is not a rest condition, it will be different. So that's why this biometric signal processing for this biometric rather for biometrics, biometric signal processing is not that much effective in most of the cases. So this was basically the physiological behavior. So now we'll talk about the behavior, which is a behavioral behavior. Behavioral, what are the behavioral status? Oh, last one. I forgot this one. That is the DNA biometrics, and I never explored this particular domain. But still, I have to tell that from swab, for blood, from semen, from tissue, people used to collect the DNA samples. They used to extract and quantify. I mean, it's a proper kind of segmentation. Then they needs to go for amplification. So accordingly, the segmented part will be sized and organized, and then the DNA are separated and they are detected properly. So this DNA study is widely used in digital forensic. The fingerprint digital, that is the hand geometry, and the DNA biometry is widely used. Sometimes retina also. So it's compared the DNA segment with various samples. So in this way, the DNA biometrics works. I have very few knowledge in this particular segment, that is the DNA biometrics. Now, coming to the behavioral modalities, that is the biometrics second modality. 2 minutes. Huh? Okay, so the skin is visible, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, fine.
It is visible, sir.
So now talking about this behavioral modalities, it's all about the behavior of a person, and the behavior is unique behavior. So what are the behaviors we have unique? Like one is Git, that is the how the person will work. So suppose there is a CCTV or CC cam, a closed circuit camera is there, and somebody is working. So the way he is working, that working pattern, if you try to find out somehow, and that pattern might be helpful to identify the person in cases of, say, bank robbery. So Git identification is it's a huge area where the posture of the person can be identified. The way somebody is dancing, that can be also identified by Git analysis, Git recognition. In Git, the one thing is important, that is the cycle. So from the left, say, initial contact to the say, it's not left, say, right initial contact to the right initial contact, then again the same cycle will repeat. Here there is a left toe off, then after that right heel off, then left initial contact, then after that right toe off. So the way the sequence it is the flow of this whole circle, that is needs to be stored. And there are two phases, one is sense phase and one is a swing phase. So in this way, this two particular phases is it will repeat. So this is called the glit cycle. So in this way, we can study the glit cycle. And another interesting thing I want to mention here, that is here in this slide I not mentioned, we worked in a few cases in plantar image. And suppose there is a sensor here, there is a sensor, and the way he is putting his feet inside the, say, if it is a shoe, and the shoe under the feet and shoe in between, there are some sensor, and there are some points, say 8 points, the sensor are placed. In this way, you can get a plantar image and you can get a time series data from the sensor, the way he is working. So that pattern can be trained, go for time series analysis. So glit circle, there is another way of study the git circle is basically time series analysis, the working pattern, the way he is working throughout that particular cycle time, that needs to be stored. But generally this grit we study with a Kinect sensor. So there is a Kinect sensor, we need to find out the cycle, we need to find out the features, say horizontal feature, vertical features, in two ways. There is a normalized way, you go for training, and from there you can identify a person. So it's all depends upon the behavior of the person. So it's a git circle or a plantar image, or from there you put some sensors where you can get the time series data, working pattern. So all these are connected, and this connection is basically for the finding out the behavioral pattern to identify a particular person. Now for this is non-invasive. Second thing is you need, it's always taken from a certain distance. You don't need not to cooperate with the candidate. And another thing is sometimes some disorder, if you're having, say, Parkinson disease, which can be identified from this working pattern. Even which I was talking about, the plantar image, in one of the laboratory which I am associated with in China, in Guangzhou University. Beside that, there is a factory who are trying to produce shoes for the diabetic patient. So if you wear that particular shoe, the diabetes will heal, not kill, because diabetes can't be killed truly. So it might be heal. So based on the time series analysis, there are some mechanism to heal. So this is one way. And demerits biometric technique, no model until now developed where the accuracy is too high for this git analysis. But still lots of work already carried out in git recognition, and also continuous, it's a continuous process. Then comes signature. It's also another behavioral pattern study, like where there isn't some XY coordinate, there are some feature points, say 1, 2, 3, 4 are the feature points. There is, it's a time series, the way you are writing, it's also a time stamp. It depends upon the pressure, how much pressure you are giving to your pen. It depends upon the curvature, it depends upon number of circuit you are drawing. So all these things are different features. So you need to go for pre-processing. Then after that, you find out geometric features or the shape-based feature, the texture feature. Texture feature might not some always works, but geometric feature is a shape-based feature is a very nice feature for finding out this. Then after that, you go for statistical measures also, like skewness measurement. Also, after that, you go for some maximum segmentation, say selecting those parts. Then this is basically the feature selection process. Then you put it into some vectors and match it with the template. So in this way, this signature recognition system works. So you can identify a person from their signature, which is also a unique identifier, digital signature. Now for this, the behavioral pattern, it's very difficult to imitate, though I always try to do it, but still it's very difficult. Non-invasive, there is no privacy concern because it's only handwriting. So it's not physically, it's not connected with anything. And this hand recognition, another thing is a signature, it changes over the behavior. So if you listen a soft song and if you listen a rock music, might be your signature pattern will be different. When you are angry, when you are in joy, the signature pattern might be different. In the morning, in the afternoon, might be the signature pattern different. So it's another study. Music therapy can be also incorporated in this, how it actually works. Now there is an error rate which is high actually. So to stabilize this, there is a handwriting signature. It needs to be properly registered, otherwise the result will not good. So lots of pre-processing parts are there, registration process are there. Once you properly registered, might be it will give you accurate results. So error rate sometimes it's high. The another thing is the keystroke dynamics. Keystroke dynamics is basically from the keyboard, the way you are pressing your keys. So key up and down. So there is a hold time, there is a press latency, the way you are pressing. So holding, then pressing, then lift time, then release time, release latency. So there is a circle. So clock cycle, just like, so key down to key up. So might be down, down, it's a cycle, might be down, up is a cycle, might be up, down is a cycle, can be up, up, a cycle. So there can be 4 cycles in this way. So these all cycles are depending upon their clock cycle. Just like clock cycle, there is hold time, latency time, press latency, there is flight time, and the release latency. So that the way they are changing depending upon that, that pattern can be stored, and we can go for keystroke dynamics analysis. So this is another biometric identification thing. Another is the lip movement recognition. This particular recognition system, many people are working, but this is good for emotion finding, but not for biometrics. But still few papers it's reported where they are trying to find out the biometrics of biometrics. I mean, they're resolving biometrics by this. But speaker identification, once we talk about voice recognition, the speech reading, sometimes it's also linked with biometrics, because you need to find out, suppose there are multiple people and some sound is coming, you have to identify who is speaking. So might be you have to study the speech, you have to read that speech. So that time might be lip reading, it will work. So there are some distance measure, again nodal points, so you need to study those nodal points, and any shape based study will work for this analysis. So lip movement recognition, another behavioral recognition system. Once you read a book, or once you watch a movie, once you work in your machine computer, the way your eye and the mouse move, say from this line to this line, and then after that I'm reading this line, then after that this line. So the way your eye and the mouse move, if you combine these two, this gives you a, so this is basically 3 different tasks: mouse and eye behavior, how it works, how it cross each other. So this is the time series data of eye, that is the oculo, might be you can capture by ocular signal, or the mouse behavior, how the mouse is working. So from that data, you can find out this one. People try to work in this area to find out the next step. They try to predict in which direction your eye will move or the mouse will move by using, say, RNN or LSTM. So there are some ways to predict this, but here it's not for prediction. We are trying to identify the pattern. So is your pattern of eye and mouse moving and my eye and mouse moving is same or not? So suppose there are 2 user, if there is a, I mean, web by using somebody did crime, So the way they are using browse the website, that pattern, if you able to store eye and the mouse behavior, might be it will able to, it will be helpful to identify the criminal. Now, once you combine this both modality, this physical and the behavioral, as I already told, one example is a voice recognition. So you have to identify the voice, you have to find out the pattern, you have to extract the features, you have to put into the database, and you have to identify who the person is, and you have to identify the speaker. Might be you have to recognize the voice. So this is the last modality, which is basically a hybrid modality. Coming to the second one, that is a position based, because this was the last one. Second one, the position based. Once we talk about position based, we talk about the tokens, we talk about the smart card, we talk about the QR code. So here is an example of a QR code one. Here, if you study this second one, that is basically anthropometric matrix. So these are all distances. Those distances is helpful to convert those distances, to generate the QR matrix. And this QR matrix is unique matrix for you. So in this way, this facial from facial expression, from face rather, you can, from anthropometric points, you can create your own QR code, or your fingerprint that can be clubbed with your MasterCard or the smart card. So not MasterCard, a smart card, this finger matching to the card, this can work. So these are all position based, what you have, rather what you. Now the interesting part is, ultimately we try to generate one biohash code. What is that? Suppose the input can be any physiological your properties, like suppose fingerprint. Now this fingerprint you transfer into a vector, it's a feature vector. You extract the features, put it into a feature vector, and this feature there is a random token generation, so like a PN sequence, pseudonoid sequence, and this is one random matrix or the basis. And you always try to inner product the feature and the matrix, feature and the matrix, and there is a threshold. Now this dot matrix, once you go for this dot product, inner product, then after that this threshold, if it is greater than the threshold, it will be 1, otherwise it will be 0. In this way it will give you a 1-0 pattern. So for 1%, if there is a particular token, that token generates based on the feature matrix and the inner operation, based on the threshold value, there is a 1-0 sequence. That binary sequence is a unique sequence for a person for this particular token, and this is passed through the digital system. So it's called a biohashing, where you are trying to hash the biomedical features. So this feature, biological feature, you are trying to hash. So which person's finger is this? You try to hash it. So this is one mechanism where we also worked 4 or 5 years back. But this is one interesting area where how the generation, how to generate the biohash code, and how to this biohash code can be encrypted and passed through some communication channel for secure transmission. So this is one interesting area to work with. So lastly, knowledge-based system. Once we talk about knowledge-based system, it's a traditional password like pins or passwords. So these are the knowledge-based. So as I already said, that sometime something that is a password. Something you are, that is your behavioral or the physical thing, that is the biometrics. And something you have, that is suppose the card or the QR code. So the token you have. So this is the basically the smart card you have. So these are the three different things. One is knowledge based, one is position based, and one is biometric based. So these are the three different types of biometrics. But again, there is one thing people try to do now, that is go for multimodal. Suppose your ECG signal, you fuse it, the properties, the features, you fuse it with your face features. Now might be the system will be much more stable and robust. So multimodal biometric authentication, it's also widely used. People try to combine with hand with face, face with ear, ear with lips, lips with anything. So any blah blah can be done. So in this way, this multimodal structure can be a good framework for biometric authentication. But again, behavioral and physiological, if you combine, that sometime one particular area, like say behavioral, it's suppose depending upon some certain circumstances, might be the physiological is not depending, then the authentication rate will fail. So it is always good to choose either physiological features, multiple, or some behavioral features. Uh, then comes biometrics as a service. So once we have these biometric authentications, we will collect these all through edge devices, and those edge devices will pass us to the fog nodes, and those fog nodes will process, and further it will pass to the cloud. So in this way, your authentication system will be in the cloud, and from there you can access your biometric rather purpose of the biometric authentication. So it's a kind of locker, just like digital locker, it's an identifier locker, and this can be further used for authentication purpose. If you have a cloud database of the criminals and you have to identify what, based on the type of the crime or based on the biometric things, you have to compare with the cloud stored data which is collected somewhere from the edge node passed through the fog nodes. So this is called biometrics as a service. Now another thing, the challenge is biometrics are not private. It's not private because most of the cases there are some data security issues, and uh, there are lots of other concerns are there. Template protection is very important. You have lots of data, you need to protect it properly. It should not be hacked, because many of the cases biometric, if it is soft biometrics, uh, some, I mean, there is a hackers can hack those. Cryptographic, say, like before that, I'm trying to give an example, like say Tesla. Once we are talking about, say, uh, UAV, unmanned aerial vehicles. In all these cases, if you use biometric authentication, if somehow it's hacked, then might be the driving will be an issue. UAV will fail to work properly. So there are lots of things can be done. Health control if there is an issue. So lots of security aspects will come into the picture. So cryptographic things you need to be taken care, like steganography or watermarking once you use this. So not watermarking, because watermarking is for content authentication. Steganography is for hiding. So there is a prominent difference between stego and watermarking. Once you crypt it, then after that, once you send through some transmission channel, we generally go for steganography, not for watermarking, because watermarking, visible or invisible, whatever it is, watermarking always is to authenticate the content. It's not for the hiding purpose. Many people unknowingly do mistake, and they used to say it's almost similar thing. So it's a interchangeable kind of terminology, but steganography is completely different. It's for hiding purpose. And another thing is the error correction based methods needs to be designed. Lots of uh, I mean, cases where you will see there is a false positive cases. Those false positive cases actually changes the ROC risk curve and your AUC, area under curve, and this way your accuracy will automatically fail. So error correction mechanism needs to be properly taken care and needs to be designed. Sorry. So I'm almost done. So how the forensic biometrics actually works. So it's all about the behavioral and the physical properties or the characteristic. So once you talk about forensic biometrics, it's a secondary subsystem of the forensic science. Suppose if you study this, it's a second subsystem. So secondary subsystem of the forensic studies. And this forensic study is a subsystem of the criminal justice system or the law enforcement or the military system or the security system, intelligence systems. So these are basically the systems. So this is subsystem is a forensic system, and which deals a second level subsystem, which is called a biometric system. So you only talk about biometric system, which is a second subsystem of the forensic subsystem. So the first thing is criminal, the screen attendance. Then after that, evidence you have to submit. After that, they will analyze it. Then after that, they will identify the person and they will arrest the person. So this way, this entire thing works from biometrics to the, up to arrest part. So these are the different steps. Okay, forget about these things. Thanks for your patience. I am done. So much more before time. So I'm expecting questions from you.
Okay, sir. So thank you for the session, sir. Dear participants, any questions? Hello, sir. Sir,
Okay, no question. Fine.
sir, you finished with the session, sir? Finished, right?
Yes, I am done. Yes.
Okay. Participants, dear participants, any doubts?
There is a question in the chat box.
Sorry, there is a question in the chat box, sir.
Okay, let me find it out. Nail eye forensic means
Is there any
nail and eye or nail eye?
sir, about nail, sir? Nail. Yes,
Nail.
nail.
I forensics.
It's good for the male and bad for the female.
Okay.
Because, see, you can do, but the thing is, for few cases it will work, few cases it will not work. Most of the cases it will not work. So it's not that people are not doing, like dental, people are doing, but still there are limitations.
Dear
Yes,
participants,
I will share the PPT. Sure, I will share.
dear participants, if you have any doubts, you can ask directly with the speaker.
Unmute yourself.
Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself. Dear
Yes, sir.
participants, if you have any doubts, you can ask directly. Unmute and ask.
Yes, sir. Sir,
Yes, please.
am I audible? Yes, sir. So, like the PPTs were really good, and few concepts were really new to. Individually, for me, I felt it really new. Thank you for that, sir. So,
Thank
and
you.
I have a doubt, as in, like, with respect to retina or the face. So, if some plastic surgery has happened or some transplantation has happened, it can be a eye or any other transplantation wherein it just imagine that the transplantation eye transplantation has happened from a criminal to a normal person. So how can we justify at that time, sir?
Suppose your eyebrow is not there. Um, if its eyebrow is not there, you will not be able to identify any person. It is very common. So as I told that in the hand geometry, suppose in the hand geometry there is a plaster, there is a arthritis, some inflammation is there, then entire this recognition system will fail. So if there is a direct contact,
क्या
like
मैं चावल
hello,
लपट करे हैं
can you mute
खाद
please?
दाल को करना सब
Please unmute. Please unmute. Dear participants, please unmute. Sir is explaining. Sir is clearing the doubts. Please unmute.
Yes, now it is fine. So that thing is these kind of this there are some certain cases which is very vulnerable, like you said there is a plastic surgery. So if there is a plaster in the hand geometry, like there is a articulation, say arthritis, there is an inflammation. So in this all these type of cases, these things will not they are not robust. But iris is a kind of thing, as I mentioned, that if you wear a sunglass or a contact lens, that doesn't actually affect, but the infrastructural cost is very high rather than the facial and other biometrics. So depending upon this, there is a in between this cost of the sensor is how much, that also depends. So these things are vulnerable. Sometimes these things are vulnerable, like if you change your face, if you're there is an inflammation, there is a something plastic surgery, this entire system will break.
Okay, got it, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other doubts? participants?
Okay.
Okay, sir. So thank you for the session, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
Thank you
thank
very
you very
much.
much, sir. It was very informative. Thank you for the session, sir.
Thank you. Thanks all. Good day.
We are ending the session morning 10:30.
Okay, participants, we are ending the sessions. Ready? We are ending the session now. So next session will be on tomorrow.
Feedback link to about this.
So feedback link will be sent to the group.
Now we will send it.
Okay, now we are going to send the feedback link. So please share your feedback for this session. Okay, thank you, thank you. So we'll meet in the next session tomorrow morning. Thank you.